Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of HockeyRoyalty.com. We got a very special guest tonight. We got Mark here from NHLDraftPros. Here we're going to be talking about all the prospects eligible in the first round and maybe some sleepers coming up. So get in the chat, like and subscribe. Let's go.
How's it going?
All right. Thanks again for our new intro from Azera. Their album's out now, self-titled, so go get yourself on Spotify and check out their new album. Mark, sorry, we had to hit you with the mosh pit there, my man.
That was pretty awesome. That was a pretty sweet intro. Awesome.
I know.
I love it.
We unveiled it last week, and my buddy from when we were 5 and 6, we went to elementary school together. He's in a band that created a custom intro for us and the video and everything like that. So,
wow, hey, that's fire. That was awesome. Unreal.
Well, speaking of fire, is your content. I've been watching you this year. The Kings haven't really had a first round pick in a while. Not a reason to jump into the prospects. When we were picking in the top 10, we started hammering this stuff out in January, and now you got to take the emotional defeat of the first round, give yourself some time to recover, and then jump into the prospects. But you've been doing it all year, man. So give our viewers a little background about what you do and who you write for and everything like that.
Yeah, so I obviously have a YouTube channel, NHLDraftPros. I do a lot of scouting reports on players and mock drafts and all that fun stuff. And then I also write for McKean's Hockey, which has been big in prospects and fantasy hockey for a long time. So I write for them. I cover a lot of the U.S. Region. And so I've been doing that for a few years and just love doing this stuff. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I like getting into prospects. It's like it's intrigue, it's promise, it's dreamful. You're going to land a Pasternak at 25 or something like that. It's something that I always like and enjoy, kind of going down the rabbit hole and seeing what could be there, and then having a beer on Friday night in anticipation of where we're picking. Al Smith coming in here with a howdy. So he's just giving you a little stick tap there. So
how's it going, Al?
Let's get started with where Mark Yannetti is our head of scouting, and he kind of breaks down or always talks about the draft in a form of tiers. Yeah. And now that you've been kind of dissecting this draft as a whole, where do you feel the tiers are in this draft, and where does 21 kind of fit in that?
So 21 is, to be honest with you, just outside of that kind of top end tier. I got around 19, 20 players that I think are pretty significant players, I guess you could say. So tier 1 is Macklin Celebrini. 99.5% chance he's going to San Jose. And I mean, he's pretty much a step above everyone else right now at this point. And then the tier 2, there's a few good players in that tier, like the Demidovs and like Dickinson and players of that nature. And then the third tier, you're getting into mid, after 10, I guess you could say 10 to 19, 20. So yeah, LA's kind of just on the cusp. But I mean, the thing with this draft, though, is it's unreal, because from 2 to 10 to 15, I mean, depending on how it goes early on, it could be the Wild West. Like, honestly, like second overall, you got who's gonna go second overall to Chicago? Is it gonna go Demidov, that dynamic, just stick handling machine out of Russia, or are you gonna go the safe pick with Artyom Levchinov, Michigan State defenseman? I mean, Caden Lindstrom, he's a big power forward out of the Dub. There's so many, scenarios, I guess, and you can see it in the mock drafts right now. Like they're all over the map. And to be honest with you, LA could land themselves a half decent player at 21, depending on where things go right now.
So if we're just right outside of it, maybe a trade up or somebody that falls back, who are some players that maybe in your tier right there at 15 and 19, but maybe aren't in somebody else's tier that could fall to the Kings at 21?
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the list and kind of making my list for LA, and there's a player out of Norway, Stian Solberg, and he came out gangbusters at the World Championships, and so he's someone that might fall to LA at the 21 range, depending if they want a big, heavy hitting, stay at home D. He's the kind of player that could potentially land there. Another one that slipped a little bit is Adam Jiricek. He's the brother of David Jiricek, who got drafted by Columbus a few years ago, and he's another one. Now, he got injured at the World Juniors back in December, and before that period, he was like a mid-first tier player, and maybe even could have came up into the top 10 discussion. So he might be someone that might fall into there. Now, those are the two D, I would say. There are some other ones that can kind of fall depending on where it goes. Forward wise, you got Sasha Boiver out of the USHL. Now he's a great two-way center, big kid from Quebec. I like him a lot. And the other one is Michael Hage, who played for Chicago Steel out of the USHL as well. He's another. He went on fire the second half of the season, but he's been climbing the rankings, so he might fall out of that 21 range. Just because of his play in the last few weeks before the end of the season.
People love those sharpshooters, and that's what he is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he can rip a puck for sure.
So the Kings, well, one, Usain Solberg is tickling my co-host is that's his guy. That's who he wants.
Seriously? Yeah.
That's what he wants at 21.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
The Kings prospect pool has kind of been diminished since they've been competing. We cut one of our left-handed D. We really only have Dvorak that we signed in the second round last year. So the left side of the D and then the right side with all the trades that we made have been depleted. Are those two the main guys that you're seeing right there at 21, or could there be a dark horse that you kind of sneak it in there?
There's no one of my personal favorites is a kid out of Sweden called Alphonse Fry, who played really well at the U18s, and I just like him because he's got a little edge to him. He's a great skater. Got some offensive upside, which he showed at the World U18s. He had 6 points in 7 games. And I like his play a lot. So he's another one that, like, say if, Solberg or someone gets scooped up a little bit earlier, he's someone who I'd have in that range too, personally. I mean, obviously, like I said, it could go either way. Another one that might fall to LA, another player who I know really well is a kid by the name of Liam Greentree, who plays out of Windsor. This is where I live, is Windsor. And so I see Spitz play all the time. I'm telling you, he's got some hands. He's got a shot. He's big. The only problem with him is his skating, a little slow. But that's something that you can kind of work on and fix. And if he gets that NHL speed, he could be a steal of the draft. And he's been dropping a little bit. He could fall in that 20 range. If you could land someone like him, yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, we talked about Sasha last week on the pod. I think we're talking about Greentree next week. So you have to deep dive in that. I really like Sasha's game. He seems like he's ready to shoot off the break quite a bit. Kind of has a little bit of a mean streak to him on the ice. Is there with the Kings having Kopitar potentially leave, and then you have about 2 years for, if it's a forward drafted, maybe make his way or entry into the NHL 2 years, 3 years down the line. Is Sasha a guy that can command the middle, maybe behind a Quentin Byfield? Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, like I said, he's very responsive defensively too, which is a nice thing to see in a young kid. Plays on the PK, and he was assistant captain for Muskegon. He's a really good player. I saw him last year as well, playing in the USHL, and it was one of the first players I noticed. I was like, oh, who's this Boiver kid? And then he's getting drafted next year. I'm like, wow, this is pretty interesting. And this year he's just added another layer to his game. Another player that we could kind of mention is Trevor Connolly. You and I talked about him earlier. He's another player that if he slips, I mean, outside of the hockey part of his game, in terms of hockey, he's a really good player. And like I said, unfortunately got that 5-minute major in the U18s, which kind of cost US the gold medal there, or the championship against Canada. But in terms of hockey, he just goes. He doesn't stop. He's got nonstop compete. He's always skating around. He never stops. He's got a great shot, good hands, sees the ice well. So like I said, this draft after 2, it's gonna be chaos, is what I think. And I mean, not to mention maybe some trades. The last couple of years in the draft, there wasn't really any big trades in the first round. I think this year could potentially be one of those trade years one of those draft years where there's some trades involved. So it's going to be interesting to see for sure.
Some drama for the Sphere out in Vegas.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Yeah, actually, I went to the draft last year in Nashville. It was a blast. This year I decided I'm going to skip Vegas. We'll wait and see how that goes. maybe go next year.
Yeah. So for people that don't really know about Connolly, obviously had some off-ice concerns with some social media posts. Do you think it's just going to come down to a team feeling good about the conversations they're going to have at the combine, and then what he's done after the event to kind of better his image?
Yeah, you know what? Like I said, I think he's been working on that. He's been doing some public relations kind of things to better his image, and I think that, like you said, at the meetings at the combine, if they come out and say, that he's taking responsibility, he's changing his act, I think that if he slides, he could be a really good pickup. Talent wise, he's 10 to 15 range, but he might slip based on if some of the teams are a little skittish on his outside activities, I guess you could say, in the past though, right? He was a young kid. I think he was 16 at the time when everything went down. So there's a maturing process as well, I guess you could say.
When you talk to scouts at the rink, do you kind of get a sense it's different from team by team when it comes to that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's unreal. So like last year, for example, obviously Connor Bedard was going first, but second and third was up in the air. A lot of people like Carlson, a lot of people like Fantilli, a lot of people actually like Smith as well in that conversation of 2 to 3. So, I mean, and this year it's going to be even wild. Like it's going to be more wild than last year. So, after Celebrini, it's going to be really interesting to see. And I mean, we talked about Mishkov slipping to 7 to Philly. I mean, that was, Reinbacher and then Simashev. And, I was there live. Yeah. And like just the responses from everyone around us was like, whoa, what's going on here? Right. So I think the same thing's going to happen this year, probably even in spades.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think you're going to see a lot of people in the top 5 go, hey, we got our guy that we would have taken at 2 if we were at 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that conversation is definitely going to be had this draft for sure.
So with the Kings prospect pool and kind of seeing where it's at now, what kind of players have you seen the Kings take in the past? And is there maybe a true Kings fit that you think based on how they've drafted?
I mean, like you said, they haven't really had a first round. Well, they haven't had a first round pick since 2021, Quentin Byfield or Brant Clark. Sorry, Brant Clark. Yeah. And then Quentin Byfield before that. And then Alex Turcotte was the one before. I mean, Alex Turcotte for 5th overall didn't, really hasn't panned out yet. There's some high upside there potentially. But I think, the Kings, they tend to go bigger mobile kind of players. So, Clark is a big, highly, great moving D. Quentin Byfield, big power forward kind of player with some nice hands. I've seen some highlights of him this year. Like, wow, his development's been really impressive. That was a great pickup. And so, I mean, that's why like Sasha Boivers kind of fits that mold. Stein Selberg, similar to that as well. So Adam Yurchak, people are dismissing Adam Yurchak. If he didn't have that injury, he could potentially be, in that 15 range. So it's going to be interesting to see where what LA does at 21 for sure.
I wanted his brother to fall because of his injury. I wrote a whole article on it because Peyton Krebs fell because of the injury. Like these really top players were falling for injuries during the midseason, and it's like, okay, like was the player good beforehand? Like it doesn't like and I understand there's so much evaluation that goes on from World Juniors all the way until June. It just seems crazy to be like, oh, well, we had this guy higher in December, but because he hasn't played, this player goes up because he's played. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. Like when you're drafting a kid that's 17.
Yeah, and what the funny thing is too is I see this a lot is the U18s, which is the last big tournament before the draft, and sometimes players move up in a big way or move down in a big way just based on their play on that. So, and one of them, like I said, is Liam Greentree. He had 90 plus points in the OHL on a bad team. And he's pretty much carrying that team. And, goes into the U18s and doesn't have a stellar showing. Like you could see that his speed was a little bit of an issue for him. But like I said, in terms of like hockey IQ and shooting and just sees the ice really well, has some great hands. So he kind of dropped a little bit. So, it's tough. Injuries, U18s, there's all these factors in it, and it changes so much throughout the season. It's unreal.
So for Solberg, I think the Kings are tired of the stationary left-handed D. The topic around the Kings has been 1-3-1. Does he have any offensive upside? How is his skating? Is he just kind of a snow cone or a cone out there and draft?
decent skater. In terms of, offensive upside. He didn't put up some, big points in the Norwegian league, but he is playing in the SHL next year. So, it's one of those things, like, do you take a chance and hope that he kind of, progresses well, I guess you could say. But in terms of like physicality and defensive play and skating, it's a solid pickup, to say the least. So someone I'd take a chance on for sure. I just like that kind of play. And I think that, with you got Brant Clark, who's pretty much running your PP. Solberg would be another, secondary piece, I guess you could say.
Yeah. How's this? We're big here at Hockey Royalty as a defenseman. You got to start the offense with the zone exits. How's his puck handling and getting the puck out of the zone?
Yeah, he's decent. He's decent in that department. He's still young, so there a lot of these young players, and I see it almost even the top tier D. There are sometimes some issues if they get a little rushed or stuff like that. They kind of potentially bobble it a little bit here and there. With the exceptions of guys like, say, Zane Parekh. Like, he's just I just went to the Memorial Cup final there, and he is so smooth with the puck on his stick. There are times when I'm thinking, oh, you got a lot of pressure on here, you better start moving, and then all of a sudden he just slips out, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that. Another really good D this year is Sam Dickinson, played for London. So I got to see both of them play in the final this year. And these guys move the puck really well. So, and I've always said that it's for defensemen, it's very important that you're like the quarterback of zone exits. You have to be able to control the puck, take your time, see the outlets and stuff like that. And Solberg's decent at that. Like I said, there are some things that he needs to work on, but he's not top tier, but he holds his own, we'll say.
Now, if it splits to the other side and goes Hirasek, how's his defensive game, and what kind of style of defenseman do you categorize him?
So Jiricek's more of a stay-at-home D. Not too much offensive upside as well. Big, mobile, sees the ice well, really good active stick. I like a lot of his game, to be honest with you. I'm a big fan of defense that can play their own zone or all three zones basically, and have a little physicality to him, and I always tell in my videos, I say, you don't have to like hammer guys and, knock down guys, but if you can pin them against the wall and, puck retrievals and stuff like that, active sticks, as long as your gap control, stuff like that. And he's got that. And like I said, same thing with Solberg. So if they fall, those two players, it's going to be a tough pick for the Kings, definitely.
A little toss up there.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into our next question, I'm going to go to our sponsor here at DraftKings. We're close to crowning a Stanley Cup champion, and with the action heating up on the ice, it's even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. New to DraftKings, listen up. New customers can get no sweat bet up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5, and you get the bonus bet back equal to what you bet if it doesn't hit. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get a no sweat bet up to $1,500. If your first bet doesn't hit, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPPANY or 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for those with gambling. Call 888-797-777 or visit ccpg.org. Play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill and Casino in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. No sweat first bet, one per customer. Issued on the bonus bet of the amount of the initial losing bet. Bonus bets expire in 168 hours after issuance of the dkng.com /ice for eligibility. Wandering deposits, restrictions, terms, responsible gaming and resources. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. After that mouthful, I've been saying that this is on our podcast, this is the most important pick for the Kings in a long time. I think the older players are going to age out in 2 or 3 years. It's going to be the new regime with the Pierre-Luc Dubois, the Byfields, Fiala, all those types of players, where this guy could be a breath of fresh air, and he's going to be the face of the prospect pool going forward. I really think, is there a player that maybe comes to mind that could kind of handle that type of pressure?
In terms of all the players that we've spoken about, or just in general? Yeah, to be honest with you, I'd say Sasha Boiver. Like I said, he's an assistant captain for his team as a young player, and he's got that mature two-way game. He's big. He's got a little edge to him. He's got some, offensive upside. Could be a good secondary piece, second line center. Obviously, like I said, He's got some maturity to his game when you're named an assistant captain on a team as a draft eligible player. So he could be like that player that could take some of the heat off.
Yeah, Kings like to draft captains or assistant captains. They did it with Bjorn Foote and many other players. So that might be right up their alley. I think going into this draft, it's going to be quite a bit, like you said, back and forth, in and out of where the Kings might pick. If you were to say a home run pick for the Kings and draft night and day one, man, the Kings really got a haul. Whether they move up and grab somebody or they take somebody at 21, who's that player for you?
Yeah. I mean, if they can move up, there's a bunch of players that could, potentially, like, I've been a huge fan of Sam Dickinson out of London Knights. Like, he's just that prototypical. He can skate like for a big kid, 6'3", 200 pounds, and he can move like the wind on the ice. Heavy shot from the point. Like, his one-timers, unreal. Got some, like, he had a goal and an assist in the finals there in the Mem Cup finals, and he was flying out there. He's one of the players that I think some of the mocks have him dropping, past 5. And I'm like, wow, that's even into the 10 range. I'm like, if the team can pick up Dickinson at 9, 10, run to the stage and get his jersey ready, because he's phenomenal. Now, in the LA Kings range, if Liam Greentree, he was the captain of the Windsor Spitfires, and if he drops down, that's another one. He like big, like I said, hockey IQ, great hands. If he can fix his skating, watch out. He's going to be a steal.
Gotta love those goal scorers. I think Kings fans would be happy with that. Needing to score the puck, not only at the Kings level, but at the Marine level, to be an interesting pickup there for the Kings if they get Liam Greentree. Oh
yeah, like I said, that run to the stage and get his jersey ready. That'd be phenomenal.
Now, last question. Everybody loves a good sleeper. Everybody loves the dark horses. Matt Roy, 7th round pick for us. Mikey Anderson, 4th round pick. Who are some dark horse names that in the end of the draft that Kings fans should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with people that I've seen a lot players that I've kind of watched throughout the season. And one of them is another Windsor Spitfire by the name of Cole Davis. He's a little firebug. Always, hi CJ, always moving around on the ice, and had 46 points in 50 or 60 something games this year, so which wasn't bad for a rookie. He's a June birth, so he's a little bit later, a little bit younger, I guess you could say, in terms of the draft. I just like his compete. So he'd be a great middle 6 type player, and even if he doesn't fall into the middle 6, you can count him on the 4th line, because he's just got so much versatility to his game. And then there's another goalie out of the USHL, Hendrickson, and he played in the USHL, and he also played in the Minnesota high school, and he was stellar. And I know that the Kings need a little bit of help in the goalie department, so I'd have him as one of the sleepers as well. I like his game. Big kid, very not big kid. He's a little bit smaller in terms of goaltending nowadays. It's like 6'3" plus. But he's very athletic. He's got great compete. He doesn't give up on a puck. He's not scared. Yeah. So those are a couple players, like I said, because I've seen them play more. I'm sure that there's some players in Europe or whatever that probably would be good sleepers. But just because I've seen these kids more, I kind of went with them.
Those two guys sound right up the alley of the LA Kings. Little Spitfire seems a little bit like a Blake Lizotte type player. Can have some offensive ability. Yeah. What they call him, a mosquito in a tent, is kind of what they plays like.
Yeah.
And then, hey, we all love our active goalies up here. We had one for quite some time, and Jonathan Quick. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you know what? It's looking forward to this draft. LA is just outside the cusp. If they can make a move up a few spots and then make it to the mid 15, 16 range, that'd be pretty awesome. Depending on who's available, obviously. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Get ready. It's going to be a ride, this draft, tell you.
Well, Arthur Kaliev has asked for a trade. I don't know if he'll be a piece that maybe other teams might be interested in, or the topper to get up into that draft zone. Mark, it's been great having you on and enlightening us in the top prospects of the NHL draft. I think a lot of Kings fans are excited to get some new blood in the prospect pool. Please plug your channel one more time for everybody to get their draft content going forward.
Yeah, like I said, I'm on YouTube. It's at NHLDraftPros, and I got a whole bunch of scouting reports and mock drafts and all that fun stuff. check me out there. And then, like I said, check out McKean's Hockey. I do a lot of articles for them, and I appreciate being on the show. It was awesome, a lot of fun. I love talking hockey, so this is right up my alley.
Well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Maybe if we get one of the guys, if we get Liam, you have to come on and then go deep dive.
If you land Liam Greentree, I will definitely come on the show and I'll talk about him all day long. I've watched him all season, the last 2 seasons. He's one of my personal favorites. And definitely we'll have to talk about him for sure.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, all our fans. You can find all of our work here at hockeyroyalty.com. Please follow us at hockey_royalty and go follow Mark at NHLDraftPros on Twitter. Always releasing new content. Thanks again, Mark, for coming on, and all of our fans on this podcast. Go Kings, go.
Thanks. Cheers.